Hello, Anil. Please
Sir,
go
you are
ahead.
live, sir. Live, sir, now.
Oh, yeah. It has you now started.
Yeah, it just started now, sir.
Good morning. I am Vishwanath, Honorary Secretary of Vidyavardhaka Institutions. I'm very happy to myself join in this webinar. I wish all the success in this webinar. First time our Dr. Shivalinga Gowda, Principal of Vidya K Puttaswamy First Grade College, has organized. I wish the program a grand success. Thank you.
Sir, Professor Anil Kumar, sir, I am speaking now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir.
We, the faculty of C. K. Puttaswamy First Grade College, have been organizing many academic programs on current and relevant issues by way of conducting conferences, seminars, and webinars, by inviting scholarly persons, professors, and academicians. These programs are helpful and useful in throwing new ideas, new insights, and new thinking, and exploring new ideas. We sincerely thank our management in giving us this opportunity and motivating our faculty to organize this kind of academic programs. Today, I invite and welcome Professor Anil Kumar K M, a well-known scholar and a Dean RAA, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Sri Jayachamrajendra College of Engineering. He is well known in academic circle of technical education, not only in Karnataka, but also at national level and at international level. He has published many research papers both at national and international level. He has attended many conferences and visited many institutes to deliver talks on research topics. He has undertaken many research proposals funded by MHRD and Visvesvaraya Technological University, Karnataka. Apart from the above, he being the social researcher, worked for industry institute interface. He has received many awards and certificates of appreciation. Today, he is going to educate and enlighten us about cyber crimes and its dimensions. Technology today has become part of human life. Technology occupied prime place in media, which is said to be fourth estate. It is rightly observed, 21st century is the age of new generation. A newborn baby willing to play games in computer than to drink milk. A technological advancements has become one of the criteria to assess economic development of the country. More and more progress is possible because of technological innovations. This because of technological innovations. There are so many advantages for life and society as well. It is so pathetic to say our younger generation are not using technology for their. Instead, they are eager to use it for timely enjoyment and their life become miserable. Today, more technology is being used for destructive purposes than for constructive purposes. In this background, I welcome Professor Anil Kumar K M to address upon introduction to cyber crimes and its dimensions. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, shall I take over?
Yes, please, please.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. Can you see the slide that's been presented now? Sir, can you see the slide?
No, sir.
Can you see the
No, sir.
the slide that's been presented now?
No, sir.
Sir, can you see the slide?
No, sir. No, sir.
Can you see the slide that's been presented now? Yeah, now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. So it's always really, a kind of a great feeling that when I just visit Vidyavartaka, and either giving a talk or be a part of the different boards there. So it always gives me a kind of feeling that it's something like a home kind of feeling, because I started my career in Vidyavartaka, and whatever I am today, I think I have learned and I have gained a lot of experience from Vidyavartaka College of Engineering. So I owe completely to my the experience that I got to my college, Vidyavartaka Engineering College. So having said that, today I'll be talking about one important topic we have, today facing, and that is what we call as the cybercrime. So this particular topic has become utmost importance today because everybody are connected to the internet somehow or the other. And if you take the current scenario, the pandemic is one of the unexpected, unprecedented event that happened. And now every educational institute, or for that matter, every organization, so they are now forced to to be online. So that means somehow or the other, all the conventional mechanisms are now have to be somehow ported to online. So when we are on the online, it is very similar to it's very similar to our real lives. In real lives, there are some there are some pleasant events, and there are some unpleasant events as well. So very similarly, in the case of online, there will be some pleasant events, and there are also what is called as unpleasant events. And these unpleasant events can be, or one of them can be, a cybercrime. So if you just take the statistics, or if in case you read through the newspaper, this particular crime has become so rampant during the COVID period, because everybody is connected to the online, and most of some kind of attacks, cyber attacks, have happened during this particular the pandemic. And if I just happen to I was just going through the couple of newspapers, and also online newspapers that is that specializes in cyber security and cyber crime. They say that lot of attacks, n number of attacks have taken place during this pandemic across the world. And they are, the attackers are using different mechanisms or different means in order to commit this particular crime. So what exactly we will be talking about in this particular brief talk will be something like what exactly is cybercrime, and how what are the different ways that cybercrimes are actually done, and what will be the profiles of those cyber criminals. And then probably probably we'll just be taking a couple of case studies, for example, those are reported in the newspaper, and then we'll try to discuss about some kind of the prevention mechanisms of cybercrime, and also we'll be discussing something about the challenges as well. So that will be our a brief agenda of my presentation. Now, when we talk about the cybercrime or cyberspace, when we talk about cybercrime, naturally the word cyberspace comes into picture. And this cyberspace has become a reality, because the entire world is connected by the internet. And when the entire world is connected by internet, and there have been many applications that are on top of the internet that helps us to create a world that's called as a virtual world. So this virtual world is made possible because of the technology that's so rampant, and technology in terms of the computer networks that helps us to connect, not only just connect, but connect at a very, very high speed. So this has enabled to create an out of in a kind of an out of box kind of a thinking world, and that is what we call as the cyberspace. Now, this cyberspace was very, very, if in case you have tracked the journey, it all started somewhere in 1998, 1998, 1995, and so on, where the dot-coms started, and then all this slowly progressed, and today we have things so rampant that everybody is actually connected to the internet, or everybody has some kind of the virtual presence in the cyberspace. And this is because the technology has simply enabled all these things to grow rapidly. For example, you take an example of microprocessors. When you take an example of microprocessors, the speed of the microprocessor is actually changing. That is, according to statistics, according to a survey, the speed of the microprocessor always doubles every 12 to 18 months. So that is how the developments have taken place with respect to the microprocessor. At the same time, if you recollect, the storage, when you talk about the storage is also increasing every 12 months. So therefore, there's phenomenal storage space available. So therefore, everybody is trying to, digitize information and store them in some of the storage servers. And what is important is also the bandwidth. Previously, if I recollect, in 1990s and so on, we were using what is known as a dial-up form of internet connections, and that internet speed was very, 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 very low, very, very low. And it was, sending an email was a very big thing then. But today, if in case you see, things have changed drastically, and people were using what is known as the copper cables for connecting to the internet, but today they are using what is known as the optical fibers, and these optical fibers are connected to their homes. So that means the speed associated with optical fibers are also phenomenal, and very very, very very, very high. So therefore, if in case we talk about today, most of the households, they have a bandwidth of something like 10 to 40 Mbps. So I think every household will have something of this bandwidth, which makes them, quite active in what is known as the cyberspace. And one of the very important factors is that, whether there is a speed increase in terms of microprocessor, and the storage is also increasing, and also the bandwidth, what makes all these usable or adaptable is the price. So there are different prices that are offered by different companies and the firms that makes the people to simply jump onto the cyberspace and jump onto what is known as the web. So these things have attracted people to what is known as to be an active participant in the cyberspace. Now, if you just take a statistics, India ranks third in terms of the highest number of internet users in the world after USA and China. So this is one of the statistics that we need to talk about. So India ranks the third. And also, India secures the spot among the top 10 spam sending countries in the world alongside USA. So when we talk about spam sending, we know what exactly is spam. Spam is something like, that is unwanted, unwarranted, actually. So for example, I may not be interested in some of the mails. I think most of you would be receiving emails, and some of them would be from Nigeria, and some of them would be from some countries asking or informing that they have an option or propositions for some kind of job related. So those are called as spams, which we don't actually entertain. So India, most of these mails actually are coming from the African continent, but also, it is true that India is also one of the top 10 countries, who is also contributing this to the spam world. Okay, so that is also one of the important statistics. So that means you can just imagine, so the amount of resources that people would be using to contribute to this particular spam. Also, another statistic says that India is ranked among the top 3 countries to be affected by the cybercrime. So these are some of the statistics that gives you an idea what exactly, why cybercrime has actually, is skyrocketing, because, technology is available and the prices are available, the prices are little, affordable. So therefore, people are coming onto the cyberspace, and when they are coming onto the cyberspace, so there are issues of what is called as cybercrime. According to some of the surveys that was done previously, and it says that there are top 5 causes for cyber disruptions. So when we talk about the cyber disruptions, these are the top 5. According to the statistics, it says that 57% of cyber disruptions accounts to what is called as phishing and social engineering. Phishing and social engineering is the common, probably very common kind of cybercrime that is committed. So I'll be talking about what exactly is phishing and social engineering, but just to give you an overview of what is phishing. Phishing is basically a technique that is employed by the criminals to give you an understanding that you are actually communicating with the genuine person. For example, you may receive an email saying that you are receiving this particular information or mail from ICICI Bank, and they just want to verify your details. And so in order to verify the details, you need to click a particular link. So that is what it looks so genuine, but unfortunately they will be not. The moment when somebody click on that particular link, it will take it to a fake ICICI kind of a web page, and wherein which the user will be entering the actual username and password. So the moment username and password is entered, those are captured by the criminals and they are used for the later gain. So that is what we call as phishing. Phishing is very similar to the term phishing. Very similar to that. And also social engineering is something very similar. Social engineering is something like nowadays, I think everybody would have received a telephone call saying that they are calling from so-and-so, and they try to manipulate you or they try to coerce you in giving out some details. That is what we call as social engineering. In addition to it, the statistics says that 41% is because of malware. Malware is something like, a kind of a kind of virus. Whenever we try to download, and this particular software that I download, it looks very authentic and genuine, but probably it would have some kind of a program inside it which will really try to collect the data from that particular system that was downloaded, and then try to communicate with the remote machines. So that is what we call as a malware. Then there is something like 30% accounts to what is called as spear. 30% accounts to what is called as spear. Spear is something like spear phishing. Spear phishing is something called the targeted kind of an attack. So it's basically targeted. Targeted is focusing on a particular target. Say, for example, maybe in the couple of days, you might have heard, you might have heard, or probably you have read in the newspaper that, there was some kind of a cyber attack on Iran's nuclear facility. So, and they blamed it on what is known as the Israel. So there is some kind of a targeted attack that takes place. Now, this targeted attack takes place because a mail would be sent to some employee of the Iranian facility. Employee of the Iran facility, and then by accidentally that Iran, the employee would have clicked, and then that would have resulted in some kind of an attack. So we call it as a spear phishing. Then the 20% attributes to what is called as denial of service. Denial of service is a very common kind of an attack that that causes cyber disruption. So denial of service is basically whenever you have a particular server. Let's take an example of Amazon. When you talk about Amazon is basically you can call it as a virtual market that are providing a particular service. But if in case you bombard the Amazon server with too many requests than it can handle, so what happens is ultimately that particular server will crash. And when the server crashes, this particular machine will not be able to provide the requested or the required service. So hence we call that as a denial of service of attack. So basically, I think, when Facebook actually came into picture, or for that matter, when Flipkart introduced what is known as big billion day, some kind of sales. So you might have noticed, or probably you might have read in the newspaper that just on that particular sale day, the server crashed. So what happened is, because the number of requests was so phenomenally high, that the server was not able to handle those requests, and they were not able to respond to it. So because of which the server crashed. Now that is something like, this can be genuine or this can be deliberate. So that means if somebody wants to deliberately cause the service not to be rendered, so we call them as something like a denial of service kind of an attack. Then you have something like 90% would be something like out of date softwares and ransomwares. So this is 19%. So that means there are softwares that we actually download or we actually have installed in our systems. Just to give an example, let's say that we have a Windows operating system. Once we download the Windows operating system, what happens is the Windows operating system, probably every now and then they will release the new versions of Windows operating systems. So when they release the new Windows operating systems, over a period of time they stop supporting the services of the previous or the old operating systems. And then what happens is when they stop supporting the services, and at the same time they would make an attempt to also release some kind of service packs. That means they would have understood that there would be some kind of issues or vulnerability issues in those operating systems, and periodically they'll try to come out with some kind of a patch, service pack. Now, if somebody will not be upgrading that service pack to their operating system, so what happens is that gap or that vulnerability would exist in that particular operating system, and this can be definitely made use by the cyber criminals in order to intrude a particular system. So therefore, this can be an example of what is known as an outdated software or ransomware. A ransomware is something like a software that will hijack your system, and it will demand money, and once the money is credited, only then a key would be given, so that using that key the entire system can be recovered. So that is what we call as the out of date software, as well as something called the ransomware. So this particular slide gives you an account of what kind of attacks contribute to the top 5 issues with respect to the cyber disruptions. And as mentioned, internet has enabled us to actually have another kind of life. We have a physical life, as well as at the same time we are also a part of something like a virtual life. So we have a virtual life as well. So cybercrime is emerging, and it has become a very serious threat. And every government across the world, and as well as the law enforcement agencies, they are actually working on the different policies and different strategies, so that they can actually try to control, detect, as well as control these kind of crimes from happening. And cybercrime is actually defined as the crimes committed on the internet using the computer either as a tool or as a targeted victim. So in either ways, you are using a computer. So computer is used as a tool, or computer is basically used as a target. So the 5 most cyber attack industries, as per reported in the literatures, are: 1 is the healthcare. Healthcare sector is basically one of the topmost cyber attack industries, especially when most of the healthcare industries are now connected to the network, and there are and most of them, and some of the healthcare sectors are using Internet of Things for measuring the different parameters of patients and so on. So most of them are connected to the internet, and because of since they are connected to the internet, so they also have become vulnerable to what is known as some kind of a cyber attack. And also we have manufacturing industries, so they also have become one of the target of the cyber attack. Financial services, they have become a target for the cyber attack. The government sector again, I think we would have read in the newspaper that government sectors are the most commonly attacked kind of commonly attacked via cyber attacks. And then you have transportation. So transportation becomes very significant. Why? Because most of the transportation, say for example, if you talk about metros, So metros it makes use of a lot of sensors, and when they make a lot of sensors, they also have become vulnerable for some kind of cyber attack in controlling those sensors or in disabling those sensors, and rendering the functions of those sensors inactive, and causing casualties and so on. So transportation also have become one of the major industry that is prone to what is known as the cyber attack. Now, why crime? Just to think, given statistics, why exactly the crime happens? Now, crime happens because of a lot of things. Like, for example, 42%. Again, this is a study that was documented. It says that 42% is because of our own mistakes. For example, a configuration may not be set right for the systems, and it could be something like we have a network and the firewall settings are not properly set, or we have not understood the patterns of the firewall properly, and so therefore we have not anticipated all kind of, or probably different types of the threats, and we have not configured those in the firewall. This could be also one of the reasons. And also the applications that we are trying to use may not be actually verified by a third party, and we are using those applications, and that could also result in what is known as some kind of crime. That is 42%. And then we have something like 6%. 6% is because of the code. And because today what has happened is everybody is talking about open source code, because codes are available. If in case you talk about if you talk about open source, you talk about anything. For example, if we give a project to students, most of the students actually they first instead of trying the code by themselves, what they actually do is they try to download the code from different websites. And when they do it, those codes that you download, it could be inside the campus or inside the department, or it could be somewhere. So when they do it, this action of theirs can also cause some kind of security breach, and it could give rise to a crime. So vulnerable code. So this is also one of the very important activity that needs to be checked. And the other one is something like end user error. So 31% is something like an end user error. According to most of the surveys that are done by different agencies, end users errors are basically errors. Probably I can say that it could be an error that is committed by the accidentally committed by the user, because the user may have fallen to what is known as the phishing kind of an attack. Or it could also be something like an employee doing a particular job. Say, for example, if some employee who's not actually happy with his boss, probably some kind of crime is also noticed in those situations. For example, there have been many instances that we have read in the newspaper that probably one of the disgruntled employee, or because he was not happy with the boss, he actually leaked the credit card details to he stole the credit card details, and then he actually put it on the online. So these kind of things also happens. Sometimes this may be intentional, and sometimes this may not be intentional. And also there's one more aspect to it. Sometimes what happens is cyber crimes are actually actually committed with the help of the insiders again. Say, for example, you have a server room, and in the server room we say that no one should be allowed inside the server room, because the server room can be very sensitive. Suppose if in case you talk about the financial data, or it could be something like academic related data, we say the server room is a room where the students or any staff for that matter, unless the authorized person, should not be allowed. But there are some exceptions. For example, there would be some kind of housekeeping personnel who has to be allowed time and again for cleaning and so on. And it is observed that some kind of crimes have happened only because of these people. So these people have been they've been used as a source to commit cyber crime by paying something like say 100 rupees or 200 rupees just to place one pen drive into that particular slot of the server. And that pen drive that they place into the slot of the server can result in some kind of an attack. So therefore, there are various instances where end user can also result in some kind of a crime. And then you have 6%, and this 6% we say that it could be a targeted kind of an attack. Say, for example, we have statistics like countries. Maybe the latest is something like you have read in the newspaper saying that for Chinese hackers or the Chinese people, they're trying to steal some kind of information related to the COVID solution from the US universities. So they are something, especially the MIT. So that's a kind of a targeted attack that 6% is towards that. And then 15% we are not aware of why this particular cyber crime happens, because it happens because of various instances. Now, what exactly is the difference between the conventional and the cyber crime? The conventional is something like, there is no apparent distinction between cyber crime and conventional crime. Okay, the crime is a crime. However, in the literature, there exists a very thin difference between the conventional and the cyber crime, and that is the usage of the medium in the case of cyber crime. The usage of the medium. So in this case, we use what is known as the computer as a tool, as well as a tool to cause an attack, and the computer can as well as be a target. So these are some of the paper clippings that appeared in the recent newspaper, which says that cyber crime is it's actually it's on the peak, because 4 months and 32 crores, like it's been because of cyber crimes, a lot of money has been misused, or there's some kind of fraud that has happened over the 4 months, and the amount that they have mentioned is a very big one. And there's another statistic. There was another newspaper that the article, the clipping that shows that cyber criminals, they have attempted to attack most of the systems. They have attacked Windows. They have attacked Linux. They have attacked all the kind of operating systems, and it seems that Windows are the most attacked. And they say that approximately 1,985 attempts will be made per minute. So that is the statistics they have recorded, and these are the statistics that says that that gives you an idea that how much of attempts have been made over a period of time. And also the another clipping says that like, for example, Maharashtra, Delhi, and these are the states which are very, very vulnerable to some kind of cyber attacks. So you have Karnataka figuring in the 6th place. And if you talk about something like cities, so Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, all these metro cities, and where are highly at risk when we talk about some kind of cyber security or cyber risk. Now, what are the reasons for cyber crime? The concept of law has said that human beings are vulnerable. So basically, humans are vulnerable, and they need some kind of rules of law is required to protect them. So if in case we apply the same thing with respect to the cyberspace, we can say that the computers, or you can say the digital systems, they are also vulnerable. So therefore, there should be some kind of rules, or there should be some kind of law that's required to protect and safeguard them against cybercrime. And why these are vulnerable? These are vulnerable because they are they are able to store data, and the capacity of the data that they can store is phenomenally very high. And now today, because of the internet and so on, they have become very easy to access. And some things we don't understand actually. If in case you talk about a layman from the end user perspective, we don't understand the intricacies of it. It's very complex for us, but we are happy from the point of using it. So therefore, it's very complex, but I'm happy to use it. Then negligence. Yeah, there are some aspects of negligence because be it something like the username or the password, because most of the usernames and password would be the same for all the emails accounts. and sometimes the emails, because what people suggest is the username, the password should not be a simple English, alphabets. Because if you use a simple English alphabets, the people can use what is known as a dictionary-based approach to crack, try different combinations, and then they can try out what makes sense, and then they can use that as a password. So therefore, there is always some kind of a negligence on part of everybody whenever we want to, say, for example, give a password, or whenever we, leave a system, because, most of the systems should be password protected, because when the systems are not password protected, it's quite possible that somebody can just come in and then use a system and then, use that system as a source to commit a crime. So negligence is also there. And sometimes what happens is loss of evidence. Now, in the case of a conventional crime, we have a crime scene, and the moment people learn about the crime scene, they become very aware, and they know what to touch, what not to touch, and what exactly they are supposed to do with in that particular, how to behave in that particular situation. But this cybercrime is all a new thing. Most of us, we don't know what exactly we need to store as evidence. For example, if you have paid some kind of an online transaction, or if you have done some kind of an online transaction, and suppose if in case, the system hangs in between, and you'll be wondering what exactly has happened, whether the transaction was actually carried out or the transaction was not carried out, right? So, as an user, as an end user, what are the things that I can do? So probably I can just copy the URL, copy the URL, take a snapshot. These are some of the things that we can do. But sometimes, maybe we will not be able to understand, or will not be oriented of all these things, and we will simply, let go things. So when we let go things, it is again, it could also be, it could also be one of the reasons, why we will just give away to these kind of things. Now, if you just talk about the cyber criminals, just to give a profile of the cyber criminals, who are they? They actually are basically different people. They are from different backgrounds and different age groups. So it could be, it could be a children of an age group of 6, or it could be somewhere beyond that. So you have all people working on it. So you don't have a specific, we have children also doing, acting as cyber criminals, and then you have people of all age groups also becoming some kind of a cyber criminals, usually appearing in their pseudo names, or pseudo images, or pseudo profiles. So then it could also be something like, organized teams. For example, you have, probably it could be a state-sponsored team. It could be something like a Pakistani organized cyber criminals or cyber army. That's what they proclaim. They call it as Pakistani cyber army, and then you have China's hacker army, and so on. And there is a infamous a group called as Anonymous. So these are these are some kind of organized, you can call it as a syndicate, of people either backed by the state, or either, they are acting on their own. So these are some of the people who actually try to, try to cause some kind of issues to the regular functioning of the daily activities in the cyberspace. Similarly, you have professionals, hackers and crackers. So you have called as a white hat, and then you have something called a black hat. So there are people who are called as black hat because, their objective is to disrupt, their objective is to exploit, and their objective is to, make something out of it. So those are called as black hat people, or black hat hackers. And then you have a white hat. The white hat are those basically, either these people would be employed by the industry, or these people would be employed by the state, just to ensure that, whatever softwares, whatever services that somebody is trying to provide, say, for example, the government of India has come out with so many digital initiatives. So when they are actually putting it onto the society, or to the use by the society, they need to be 100%, they need to be 100% confident that this particular services is, is actually free of any kind of vulnerability. Because if there is any kind of vulnerability, so this would lead to a lot of issues, and ultimately, say for example, people from different countries may, they can cause some kind of inconvenience to these kind of services. So in order to doubly check that this particular service is actually vulnerability free, so they use what is known as the crackers, and they are the white hat hackers. So they basically try to ascertain where are the vulnerabilities that exist in this particular system and tries to address those vulnerabilities. So that is what is the functioning of the professional hackers. Then finally, as I've mentioned, one of the very, very strong a profile of a cyber criminal would be that of a discontented employee. Okay, so it's always understood, it's always reported that because of some kind of an issue with respect to the employer, so there would be some employees who will actually do things not according to the policies of the the organizations. So those, this gives you an idea that what would be the profile of cyber criminals, or who these cyber criminals are. Now, what are the different types of cybercrime? This is what I'm trying to give you. I'll try to give you an information about what are the different types of cybercrime and how do they do it. So these are some of the examples of different types of cybercrime. And one is something like unauthorized access to computer systems and network. And the other one is theft of information contained in electronic form. And the other is something like email bombing. Then there is something called data diddling. Then we have something called a Salami attack. Then there is DOS attack. Then there is virus and worm attack. Then there is something called Trojan attack. And then we have something called a Webjacking. And these are some of the attacks. These are some of the crimes that have been reported over a period of time and have been documented in the literature as the different versions of the cybercrime. Now, when we talk about something like unauthorized access to computer systems or network, what exactly it means? It means that somebody has gained access into your particular site, or it could be a system, or it could be a server, by probably using a fraudulent means of access. That means the person is not authorized to do it, but somehow through fraudulent means, the person has actually entered the system, or it could be a server, or it could be a service. So this is also a kind of an attack, and this is the most common kind of an attack that we are also aware of. And to add to this, mobile phones and smartphones have become the latest targets. It was only the desktop machines and only the servers previously, but today the targets have changed. Today we have mobile phones and smartphones which are available, which are available with everybody. So those have become the targets of the hackers. And according to one of the newspaper articles that was published in Mumbai, 20 September 2007, the government of Maharashtra website was hacked by unknown persons. So these kind of incidents, or these sort of incidents, have been happening where the governmental websites have been defaced, or they have been actually the contents have been changed, and some kind of other contents have been put. So this was done by gaining access to those websites or the web servers through an unlawful means. Then you have something like the theft of information contained in the electronic form. Now, this theft can be committed by internal or external members. So this kind of theft can be committed by internal or external members. Yahoo announced recently, probably in 2013 and 14, that there was something like 500 million users' data was actually stolen. And if in case you have followed the proceedings of Yahoo was initially was up for sale, and Microsoft was bidding for buying the Yahoo. But when this particular incident happened, now the shares of Yahoo has come down to very, very, very low, and this has contributed to the biggest remarks on what is known as Yahoo. So Yahoo, even though it was one of the worldwide leader in providing different services, notably the email service, there was some kind of a security issue, and because of the security issues, 500 million users' data was actually was stolen. So that was that happened in 13 and 14. Similarly, in 2016, Uber, they said that around approximately 57 million Uber users and 600,000 drivers were stolen. Information about them were stolen. Now, the question is something like, where do these stolen information end up? According to, if in case you want to follow where exactly these informations would end up, you can just go to Google, and then you can say, in Google, there is an option called alerts. So what you can do is, you can just type in Google something called dark web. You can type something called dark web. So the moment you type dark web and alert is clicked, every day you will receive notification from the dark web saying that what is up for sale in dark web. So that means you'll come to know how many users' data or credentials that were stolen are available for sale in dark web. So that means those data that is stolen are available for sale in dark web. So that means our profiles are available for sale in dark web. So somebody can actually purchase it, and then they can use that against me or against you. So those are some of the, that's why we say that this becomes a very serious issue, because whatever we try to store it in a digital form, and we believe that that should be available there in a secure manner, but after some time, if in case we learn that those contents are actually stolen and have been made use against me, so it will be one of the worrying factor for us. So then there is something called an email bombing. Email bombing is a very typical example of what is called as a DOS kind of an attack. Typical email bombing refers to what? Email bombing, for example, even today, when we don't check our email, when we don't check our email or the inbox regularly, so what happens is new mails will be coming in to the inbox, and after some time, the inbox capacity would be, will be full. The inbox capacity would be full. So once the inbox capacity would be full, so what happens to the later genuine emails? The later genuine emails would not find its place in the inbox, and they would be lost, right? So when such things are done, what happens is the genuine mail actually will not be in the inbox. Now, this can also be used as a form of an attack. How? Basically, what happens is, if somebody is bombarded with an email, unwanted email, say 1,000 times, or maybe 10,000 times, or 1 lakh times, or 10 lakhs times. So you just imagine. So you want to disturb one person, so you are sending so many mails only to him. Maybe the volume of the mails would be very high. So what happens is, when these emails go to the inbox, ultimately the inbox will be filled with only these kind of emails, and ultimately what happens is the genuine email will not be available. Okay, so this is also one. Now, if the volume of sending is so much that if it can make the email server, now again remember, email server is a machine or a server that can be deployed either in the campus, or it can be used as the service from, say, for example, Google or Yahoo. Now, when you use it as a Google or Yahoo, they are very big players, and they have servers scattered across the globe. So that's not an issue. But say, for example, I have an organization and I want to maintain an email or email servers for my employees within the organization. So when you employ a server, the server will have a limited capacity. They will have limitations. So when somebody sends volume of that mail to this email server, what happens is generally that particular mail server will also be will just crash, because the amount of volume of emails that are coming to it is very high than it can serve, because the resources are exhausted. when the resources are exhausted, it will not be in a position to serve more, serve its purpose. So therefore, such is what we call as email bombing. And there was an example that was reported in the newspaper, and it was that of a foreigner and a Simla housing board. This particular article was reported in the newspaper, which says that a foreigner who actually was staying in Simla, the hill station, and he was basically attracted by the place, and he wanted to buy a property, and he wanted to buy a house. And so he approached Simla Housing Board, and the Simla Housing Board, after verifying the credentials, they found that he's actually a foreigner and he's on a visit, he's basically visiting. So he was denied a house. So this foreigner was so upset. What he did is he actually resorted to what is known as a email bombing. So that means he actually sent many emails to the email server maintained by that simple Simla Housing Board. So ultimately, that Simla board, the server crashed, and then it became ineffective. And then later, when the people started looking at what exactly has happened, so they later realized that this was the handiwork of the foreigner, and a case was booked against this foreigner. So this could be a typical example of what is known as an email bombing. Then you have something called data diddling. So data diddling is basically a kind of an attack that is used for, by altering the raw data before it is processed by the computer and then changing it back after processing is completed. Okay, so let me just come back. What is data diddling? Data diddling is basically a kind of an attack that involves in altering the raw data just before it is processed by a computer and then changing it back after the processing is completed. So usually this kind of attack was taking place previously. Now, previously in the sense when we had something like what is known as the data entry operators, they were predominantly using this kind of means for making some kind of money. So predominantly it was like in most of the government sectors we had data entry operators, and they were employed by the electricity boards and the different boards for entering data, the day-to-day collection of money, whatever. So this kind of attack happened then, but to some extent now, this there is some kind of procedures that have been in place. So therefore, this kind of attack is very remote as of today. Then, as I've told, denial of service attack. So denial of service attack is not just only with respect to email. It can happen to any resources. It can happen to any resources. And it could be with respect to a web service. It could be with respect to a file transfer service. It could be with respect to a media service. It could be anything. If in case you want to disrupt, the disruptions can happen, and because the disruption happen, the services will not be provided. We call it as a denial of service attack. Denial of service attack. Now, this has taken some kind of a turn. The denial of service has taken some kind of a turn. Now, previously there was one node or one system trying to attack, say, one or more systems. That means, say for example, there is one computer or one computer from one organization trying to attack. But today, there is something called a distributed kind of a scenario, where one entity is attacked by many other entities across the world. So that means the attack is not just by one, but attack is by many who are distributed across the world, and their target happens to be one, or it could also be many. So such form is what we call as a distributed denial of service attack. So in the past, this denial of service attacks have actually affected sites like Amazon. It also has affected sites like CNN, Yahoo, eBay, and etc. And then there's something called a Salami attack. This Salami attack is basically an attack that is used for some kind of financial crime. Now, what exactly happens in this particular Salami attack? See, basically what happens is, most of the software, say for example, if you talk about a bank, so the bank will, will get the software developed by a third party, excuse me, by a third party. When the software is developed by a third party, so what happens is this software will be installed in the bank, and then this software will be provided with some kind of an interface. Now, why interface? Because this interface is used for changing the rate of interest or changing some things, so that these small changes can be coded and they can be included in the software, because you cannot have a foolproof systems for any system, right? So you have a system, and you will have some kind of a window wherein which you can use that window for including or incorporating the changes. But for doing that kind of change, we have APIs, application programming interfaces. Now, some employees of the bank who are well versed with this particular interface can cause some kind of crime. How? Basically, they can use this programming to just say that every month, just deduct 1 rupee or maybe 5 rupees from all the accounts, and transfer it to one account somewhere, XYZ. Okay, so they can simply insert a small code, and this code will deduct only 1 rupee or maybe only 5 rupees. So this 1 rupee and 5 rupees will be very negligible for the customers. So they'll not be able to understand, okay, why this 1 rupee, what was the deduction of 1 rupee or 5 rupees. But this small deduction of 1 rupees from multiple accounts will be a very huge amount. And that is, what they do is they typically do it at the beginning of every month, so that, we have our own EMIs and other things that we have to pay. And in the due course of that time, if 1 rupee is deducted or 5 rupees is deducted, we'll not be able to notice it. So this kind of attack was also actually happened. And that is why we call this kind of an attack as a salami kind of an attack. Then you have something like the virus and the worms attack. So probably you're aware of the viruses, computer viruses, and the worms. So worm kind of an attack. So I'll not be discussing them. But one of the popular, very recent kind of viruses that you are, you'll be able to understand is what we call as I love you virus, and then very deadly ransomware virus. So ransomware virus was a very deadly virus, and as the name says, once the system is affected, what it used to do is it used to render the complete machine ineffective by encrypting all the data. So that means every data would be encrypted, and you'll not be able to access any of those data unless otherwise you pay whatever was mentioned by that one email that was sent to you, right? So whatever amount that you pay, only after paying that particular money, so then it would decrypt the data, and it was possible for you to get back those data. So that was one of the deadliest virus that that we actually saw. Then you have something called a Trojan. Trojan is basically a malware. Basically, it looks like a perfect program. What's the difference between this and the previous one, the virus and the Trojan? See, we know for sure that this is a virus. We know for that sure that's a virus. And if you probably don't download it into your machine because that's a virus. But Trojans are not like that. Trojans are something like, it looks like a perfect program. It looks like a perfect program from outside, just like we have, for example, if you have many apps in Google Store or Apple Store, you have many apps. There are so many apps. But whenever we download these apps, do we actually check whether it is a genuine or not genuine? So when suppose if in case we simply download it, it looks like a very genuine software or a genuine app. The moment it is downloaded, the actual the role of that app comes into picture. That means it was actually designed for what? It was designed maybe for a camera purpose or maybe for clicking photos or whatever. But inside it, there would be some functions, and that particular functions will be doing the other job. Say, for example, collecting your information or enabling the microphone or enabling the camera and all those things. So that is what we call as the Trojan. Okay, so then you have something called a webjacking. So webjacking is basically, trying to hack a web page. Not only hack a web page, also take into account or take into custody the web page or the web server. So that means you have, let's take an example. Usually web pages or websites are managed by what is known as the webmasters. Web page or they are managed by webmasters. So when when the credentials of the webmaster is somehow compromised, so that means somehow somebody learns about it and they try to take over that particular website, maybe for some duration. Okay, it may not happen for a very long time, because the moment the webmaster realizes that his credentials are not being accepted by the web server, immediately he will take a he will call up the person who is hosted this particular web page, and he'll try to reset the password and he'll try to get back the original passwords and so on. But during this course of time, that means before he realized that the web has been hacked or the web server has been jacked, and to the time that he actually receives a backup, so there is substantial amount of time. And during this substantial amount of time, the contents of the complete website can be defaced. So that means entire contents of the web page as well as the websites can be changed, and it can definitely, the moment it is changed, it can cause definitely inconvenience to all the people who are actually following this particular website on a day-to-day basis. Say, for example, if let's say that today most of us are affected with COVID, right? So we are actually if you take an example of the websites of web servers of government, they are actually updating the statistics of COVID. Just imagine for a minute, if somebody takes control of this particular website that is updating the COVID cases, and this change the content, what kind of impact it can have on the citizens? Because this will be immediately picked up by the press, and they get reported every time and everywhere, saying that there are a very huge amount of cases that was reported, even though it was not so. So these kind of things can happen, and that is what we call as a webjacking. And others kind of the crime could be with respect to online gambling frauds. So many online gambling frauds, and there is something like intellectual property crimes. It could be something with respect to software piracies, copyright infringements, trademark violations, and all that. So this is very common with respect to the internet, because the logos, the copyrights, everything is it's getting misused. Then you have something called email spoofing. Email spoofing is somebody trying to pretend that he is and sending the email to the others on behalf of somebody else, and causing inconvenience. Email spoofing. Then there is forgery of documents. There are so many tools available that can be used to forge documents. So therefore, how do we ascertain what is original, what is authentic, and which is actually the plagiarist, right? So there are so many issues that comes with these things. And also, there is something called cyber defamation. So someone publishes some kind of defamative matter about a particular person, or it could be in agencies, or it could be a community. So these are things that we're actually looking or reading in the newspaper on a day-to-day basis. And also there is something called cyber stalking. Cyber stalking is something that is that's getting reported in the media every now and then. And we see that famous personalities, especially the actors, they are being stalked by the followers or the so-called the fans. So that means every time when a person visits one page to the other page, so there is somebody who's following and commenting, appreciating, and posting things. So this is what we call as cyber stalking, and this is actually becoming one of the very, very serious cyber crime. So there was one typical example of Seema Khanna. Seema Khanna actually, Seema Khanna actually, this particular case was reported in the newspaper. And this, just to give a highlight, what is this? This Seema Khanna actually was, she actually received a series of emails. Again, cyber stalking can happen either through emails or it could be through social sites. So in her case, she received a series of emails and asking, to send some kind of an explicit pictures of herself, or she has to pay some kind of 1 lakh to that particular person. So why he did that, we don't know, because probably this person knew something about Seema Khanna, and as a result, he or she was trying to blackmail Seema Khanna by asking her to send some kind of money or some kind of picture. So this case was investigated, and I don't know the complete report about what eventually happened to this particular case, but this is also a case of what is known as a cyber stalking. Then you have something called the internet time theft. Now, internet time theft is is a kind of theft that we probably experience every time. But this is more. To an extent, this kind of crime has come down. Okay, I don't say it's completely stopped, but this has come down. Let's say, for example, in the previous days, in the olden days, that when I mentioned that internet was using, we used internet using a dial-up form communication, and subsequently we used to give username and password. So somebody using the knowledge of maybe the neighbor's username and password and trying to use the internet facility, that could be some kind of a theft, because every internet connection will come out with some kind of what is known as the data pack. So that means they will be using, say for example, 4 Mbps for 1 month, and the data that is the data that they have, or data that they can use, is approximately something like say something like 400 GB or something. We have some kind of data limit. So every time when somebody uses the internet unauthorizedly, because they know my username and password, they are deducting what is known as the data from my data pack. So this was one of kind of an attack that actually happened. And to some extent, this kind of attack also is happening because if you take major, for example, major internet service providers, this internet service providers, what we do is we will just tell them that we need, say, something like 100 Mbps. We need something like 100 Mbps. This could be a college, or it could be an institute, or it could be any organization for that matter. But when we actually use this particular, their promise is we need to use 100 Mbps 24/7. But if you look very carefully, we are using only during the office time. So that means either it could be 7:30 to 5:30. But what happens beyond that? After 5:30 or after 6:30 to the next day, what happens to it? So probably one of the guess would be the internet, if somebody studies the pattern of the internet usage of a particular institute, definitely what happens is somebody, say some internet service providers, can definitely say that the usage is only between 7:30 to 5:30, and the rest of the time till the next day. So the internet usage is very limited. So why can't we use this available bandwidth to somebody else? So that can also be a kind of a theft. So when we talk about the classification of cybercrime, so cybercrime can be broadly classified under the following 3 groups. It could be against individuals, it could be against organizations, or it could be against society at large. When we talk about against individuals, it could be something like sending emails, harassment kind of emails. Cyberstalking is something like especially applicable or in social networking sites, posting messages, sending unwanted kind of messages, or sending too much of messages to a particular person very frequently. So these are all accounts to something like cyberstalking. Then you have something called dissemination of obscene materials, and then you have something called defamation. Then somehow you gained access into their account, social site accounts, or in some cases indecent exposures. In some cases, email spoofing, got the credentials and then trying to cheat, and then cheating and fraud. So this could be, and against individuals' property, it could be, somebody trying to attack the computer and making the computer, inactive, vandalism, transmitting of viruses, and then there is something called, net trespassing. Net trespassing, that is, you're trying to trespass a particular network, even though we have everything in place, but you try to trespass the network and intrude the network and try to manipulate things inside the network, trespassing. And then intellectually property crimes, internet crimes, and so on. And when we talk about classification of crime against organization, again, unauthorized access to the system resources, system information, then it could be cyber terrorism against government, and also distribution of pirated software. So that also is considered as one of what is known as a kind of attack. So when we talk about crime against society at large, yes, definitely pornography is there, polluting the youth through indecent exposures. So trafficking. So trafficking could be human trafficking and child trafficking. So financial crimes, sale of illegal articles, online gambling, forgery. All these can be some kind of crime that is committed against society. Let's take an example here. Like I just want to highlight a few case studies here. One of the case studies is something like a phishing kind of an attack. This is again a case study that was reported in literature that says that Sukhwinder Singh actually can never forget a day when he checked his online account in the last October, and his simply account showed that there was a deduction of 41,000, and he actually never had a clue what actually happened because he never actually did any kind of transaction. And the investigation revealed that his money was transferred to somebody called one Harpreet, somewhere in Delhi. So how did this happen? So he had given his password and the name online by replying to some email sent by a hacker. So that is how this kind of an attack happened. Now, most of you, probably would receive an email of you would have received an email very similar to this. And most of the universities will also receive this, because most of us will receive a very similar email, either saying that we are communicating this from the principal's office, from the VC's office, or if you take from the bank, it could be from the bank officials. So likewise, a very nice looking mail would be received by the user, or by a genuine person. And when he looks at this particular email, it looks very similar that it is from from the Gmail, from the Google. So this particular mail says that we want to upgrade the email, so therefore we need some kind of credentials. You need to click here for verifying the account. The moment we click here, it will take you to a page where you need to enter your username and password and other details. The moment you enter the other details, so that's it. So somebody can hijack your data or use this data against you. Okay, this is a typical example of what is known as a kind of phishing that happens. So if you look, or if you receive a very similar email, you need to be very careful in understanding whether it is from an authentic or non-authentic. So what are the different ways of doing it? Probably one of the way is, you can just check the email that you have received from. For example, if you have received an email from Gmail, so most probably it would be from admin@gmail.com. Okay, admin@gmail.com. But if you have received this mail from, say, for example, admin@googlenet.com, so you can just pay attention to the URL very carefully, and you can see this is not definitely from the same domain, because the domain that you have to receive mail would be from google.com and not googlenet.com, because there is probably the googlenet can be an imposter domain. So therefore you need to be very careful in identifying what is the domain name. Okay, so that is one of the ways that you can identify whether it is from a genuine or not so genuine, the website. That is one. Okay, similarly, you can look this is another example. Okay, so probably many of us would also receive a very similar mail from Amazon saying that, okay, we received your order and we want to confirm, or you have something like you have won some kind of a gift pack, kindly click on it, and then that's what you do. So you enter your username and password, and when you closely observe, the Amazon, when you closely look, when you closely observe, the spelling of Amazon looks different. So that is where you can think that this is not a genuine kind of a website. It's a kind of a spoofed website. So it's a proxy kind of a website which is trying to entice you in giving those details. But if you look at the look and feel of that particular website, it is very, very similar to Amazon. So if you just look at the feel of it, and if in case you enter your credentials, then your credential is lost, and you will be again a victim of what is called as a phishing kind of an attack. So this is one more thing that you need to notice. And in some cases, this is one of the typical cases. So recently, maybe 2008, 2009, there was some kind of an attack on ICICI Bank. ICICI Bank also was, there was a spoofed ICICI account that was also created, and many of the customers, they actually fall victim to those particular spoofed website. Now, what exactly happened here is, you get a very similar kind of a website. The moment you look at the screen, anybody looking at the screen, they will see that they are actually receiving this particular mail from a genuine ICICI Bank. Okay, it looks very similar, but on close inspection, you will notice that it is not so. Sir, probably one of the questions that you may ask is, how did you actually decide that this is not so genuine? See, again, there are so many checklists that you need to follow. One of them is, as I've told you, you need to look at the domain name. The other one is you need to look at from where you've got the mail from. And one more is basically look at the URL. So when you say URL, what is a URL? URL is basically the HTTP : and www, whatever that you enter, that is what we call as the URL. So if you look at the HTTP, most of the financial transactions, or to some extent, I think today, most of the transactions, they use HTTPS. Okay. So previously, when I'm talking about 2005, 6, most of them were using open protocol. So that is HTTP. So it was an open protocol. But of late, when people realize that there is some kind of an issue with the open protocol, so they have gone to what is known as a secure protocol. So that means most of them have started using HTTPS. Right? So one of the difference maker is that most of the services that are offered today by major companies and major organizations, they will go with what is known as HTTPS. So that is also one of the important considerations that you need to have before you actually decide whether this is a fake or a genuine kind of a website. And similarly, I think most of us would be receiving this kind of emails or this kind of what is known as advertisements on either side of Google or the results of Google. So you need to exercise caution when you are trying to click, because this could be actual imposter websites which can take your actual the informations. And then again, the credit card, the case 2 is something like a credit card scam fraud. So, off late, we probably, sometimes, we have been receiving some kind of information about credit card scam. So, one typical case is that, 3 people were held guilty in an online credit card scam by a cyber crime investigation cell, Pune. And so it is reported that they misused approximately 100 people through an online means for booking air tickets. So they actually got the credentials of 100 people asking them that they will be doing what is known as air ticket booking, and then they actually use those details, credit card details, for committing the frauds. So whenever we are trying to communicate with maybe the third party, especially the third party, somebody in between acting, trying to say that they will try to book things for you. So you need to be very cautious, because you cannot give any kind of credit card details to them, because the moment you give them, so they will be using it, and they will be they'll be causing fraud or scam using those kind of details. Very similarly, again, PayPal. So some people created a beautiful website that was looking very similar to PayPal, and requested the user to just enter those details so that they can restore the credit card that was actually suspended. They say that the credit card was suspended and they want to restore it after a technical check. So they ask the user to enter the username and password. Once the username and password is entered, they will actually, they say that it will be restored in 12 hours time. The moment they do it, again, a fraud is committed. I think typically this kind of messages would be received in maybe even in SMS also. We would receive this kind of SMS saying that please call for unlocking it and all that. And there is also something called the SMS scam. SMS scam is something I think this is what is the SMS scam. See, there is no way that we can make money actually, but unfortunately we are unfortunately most of our fellow citizens, or most of our people, they actually think that we can make money by simply doing nothing actually. So this is also one kind of a scam. There is something called the SMS scam. The concept is very simple. If you want to send, if you want to earn something like 5,000 or 10,000, probably sometimes every day or every 15 days, I don't know. So the people will say that send SMS and earn money. So that means initially you need to invest something like 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees, and after you invest 2,000 rupees, and they will say, okay, they will give you some kind of the SMSs that you need to send it to everybody. And what happens is, the more the SMS that you send, so you will earn money. So this is what ultimately what happens is, you would have invested initially, say something like 5,000. So probably you will be receiving the SMSs to be sent maybe for 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day, or maybe for a week. And after that, you don't receive any SMSs, because you would have invested 5,000 and that 5,000 is done. So these kind of SMS scams are also quite rampant, and is also one of the crimes that we see, especially in the cyberspace. Okay, so again, very similar kind of a SMS scam. And there is also work at home scams. So, I think these kind of details, or these kind of websites, or these kind of snippets, you would have come across, in different websites and web pages. So these kind of websites or these kind of web pages, you could have come something like earn daily 7, something like 800 rupees. But believe me, this is not simply they are offering 800 rupees. You need to invest initially. You need to invest something like 10,000 or 8,000 or maybe 5,000. Only when you invest, only when you invest, only then you will be able to get back something like 800 rupees daily. By the time you get something like 2 800s, the third 800 you will not receive because that person would have just would have gone with your money. So these kind of work at home scams are also quite rampant in the what is known as the websites, many across the different websites. And in some cases they will put beautiful pictures as like this, to convince you that this is actually genuine, and making you believe that okay, you also want to be a part of it. Okay, so this is so enticing that you want also to be part of it. But again, this is also a kind of a scam, a kind of crime that will be a kind of crime that will be that's quite rampant in what is known as the online. And there is the new thing, something called cyber extortion. We were familiar with extortion, and now we have cyber extortion. Now cyber extortion is this cyberspace has given people a kind of, probably to have some kind of pseudo image, a false image, a false profile. So this has given so many of them some kind of, the strength to do whatever. So one typical example is something like, Kerala police arrested something like a 27-year-old man for allegedly cheating a Mumbai-based engineer through an internet, posing as a woman and stealing money from his bank account. So this is what exactly I meant, because this in this cyberspace has given rise to a lot of pseudo images, pseudo names, pseudo profiles, and because of the pseudo profiles, they try to con people. And this is one typical example of a person cheating another, posing as a woman. Similarly, there's another case that was reported here. In this case, a 51-year-old cyber criminal, say he was actually 51-year-old, and he was called Pranab Mitra. So he actually stunned the cybercrime investigation cell of Mumbai with this bizarre fraud on the net. He is actually a former executive of Gujarat Ambuja Cements, and he was arrested on Monday for posing as a woman and seducing an online Abu Dhabi-based man and managing to extort rupees 96 lakhs from him. So that's a very big amount. So he was actually an employee, a former executive, posed as a woman, and he extorted something like 96 lakhs from him. So this is again an article that was actually reported in the newspaper. So this is what we call as a cyber extortion. And again, you would have also come across something like a blackmail kind of message saying that one of my student in your institute has some kind of a bomb, and if in case you don't pay this amount, it will just blow. These kind of, again, some kind of messages also would be received. And adding to cyber extortion, you also have something called sextortion. So this sextortion is rampant between friends, or between boyfriends and girlfriends, and usually when they break up, probably they would have sent some kind of explicit messages, and those messages can be used to extort messages, or they can use this to for their undue advantages, and all those things. So this is what we call as another kind of a crime that is reported. It's called as sextortion. And obviously you have something like very infamous international job racket. So quite often we receive vacancies from international agencies through our emails sent by genuine people or not so genuine people, but made to look that it's sent from a genuine firm and genuine people. And the moment if somebody actually responds to it, they will definitely fall victim to this particular racket. So that's the international job market. And similarly, it need not be only through email. It can be through an agency that exists in a particular city. There are agencies that gets established in a ad hoc manner for some time, and they start publishing in the national newspapers, and then they attract too many people, and once they find that they have collected too much of money, so they simply vanish. So these kind of the frauds are also quite rampant, and that's with respect to promising them some kind of jobs in the international agencies. And coming on to the social media. So social media is something very, most of them are available on social media today. It has become something like a part of our lives, and we send messages, we greet people, our friends by sending messages through social medias. So it has become an active part of our lives. But with it, there are so many kind of cyber crimes that gets also crimes that are reported. Predominantly, we have something called cyberbullying. Then you have cyber identity theft, impersonation, pornography, fraud, etc. So many things. So Let me just talk about cyberbullying now, because there are so many things, but cyberbullying, or otherwise people call it as hate messages, people call it as the obscene messages, people call it as what is known as obscene, hate, and then they use different kind of the terms to define what is known as the cyberbullying. So I'll be just trying to focus henceforth to understand what exactly is cyberbullying, what is this, basically what is this bullying, why cyberbullying is that needs to be given that interest. And if in case you recollect, most of the institutes across the world, they have started this anti-cyberbullying campaigns. And there are institutes, there are NGOs, they have started with something called the anti-cyberbullying campaigns. Why? Because they have felt that there is a need for making people understand this menace called as cyberbullying, and they need to be some kind of regulations. They need to have some kind of mechanism in place to prevent somebody undergoing what is called as this sort of bullying in the cyberspace. So therefore, I'll be talking about what is this bullying and why cyberbullying and its consequences henceforth. So what exactly is bullying? So bullying is basically somebody trying to force, threat, abuse, intimidate, aggressively dominate others. And this is repeated over a period of time. We call it as some kind of a bullying. Where does it occur? It occurs everywhere. If in case you take an example of a family, in a family we have elderly people. So we have seen of late video clips sent through WhatsApp about elderly citizens being actually physically abused and sometimes verbally abused, right? So this abuse of an elderly people at a family can also contribute to what is called as a bullying. Similarly, at the college, because in college we have boys and girls, and suddenly someone says that her boyfriend was stolen by somebody. So when this happens, everybody will turn against one of that particular person. So everybody turns against one person, and that results in insults, that results in intimidation, that results in frequent abusing and all that. So this can happen in college as well. Also, this can happen in neighborhood. Suppose if somebody visits from say a different part of the world to our neighborhood, so the reactions to them, and probably in some cases there may be some kind of verbal abuses also. So these kind of things also happens in the neighborhood. So all these contributes to what is known as bullying. What are the effects of bullying? The effects of bullying is something like depression. So people definitely will go into depression and anxiety, and always feeling a sadness, loneliness, and definitely there will be the changes in their sleeping and eating patterns, and they will lose interest in every activity that they take place, and obviously health issue becomes the major thing. And also it is noticed that if it's a student, the student will definitely will not do well in their academics, and also they are likely to miss their schools, colleges, and work. And it's also understood that 12 out of 15 school shootings that happened in US, because US, we see that, we hear that there are so many school shootings happening. Most of these shootings were because of bullying. Somebody was bullied, and because that bullied person was so frustrated, and he resorted to that kind of an action. So similarly, students accused, and one of the student accused in Washington, blamed bullying, and probably, this is the person. So this person, he's called, Sharp. He was actually bullied only because of his appearances. So he was so bullied that he took the matter into his account, and he actually, shot many of his co-students. Now, what is the feature of a bully victim? When we talk about a bully victim, how do I understand? How do I make out whether this person is a bully victim or not? So we find that, he will have a lot of injuries, and he will not be able to explain to those injuries.
And also you'll find that, most of the the possessions that he will have, either it will be lost or destroyed. Or, for example, if he's a student, most of his books would be destroyed by the others, right? So he'll have lost or destroyed clothing, books, and all that. And he will frequently complain of headaches, stomach aches, feeling sick, or illnesses, because also sometimes he will fake illnesses because he doesn't want to go to office or a college. And definitely there is a change in this eating pattern. Suddenly he will skip meals, or suddenly he will eat too much of things, so which we call as a binge eating. Similarly, difficulty in sleeping. Similarly, he will have difficulty in sleeping, or will have frequent nightmares. And then we will have something like loss of interest in school works and not wanting to go to work, and suddenly loss of friends or avoidance of situations. You also feel that, helplessness, decreased self-esteem, and also you will have some kind of thoughts of running away from home, or some cases he'll try to harm himself, or he'll try to talk about committing suicide. So that was a feature of a victim. Now, what is the feature of a bully? So usually a bully is, he gets into physical and verbal fights quite often, and he's very aggressive, and he's always sent to detention. Detention in the sense is always, if in case you talk about college, he'll be sent out quite frequently because he's always a troublemaker. And somehow he'll be having a lot of money. Maybe he would have got it from the others and so on. He'll have somehow money, and he'll always blame for others for all their problems. And he will not accept any kind of responsibility for any kind of actions that he has taken. And bully can be targeted with respect to race and religion. It could be the Muslim girls, or it could be Sikh boys, or it could be Jewish boys, because they wear different outfits. And it could be with respect to Al Qaeda, because there was a time when all Muslims were blamed because of Al Qaeda. So bullying. And again, the bullying can also be with respect to race. It could be something like African, Latino, whether you are an Arab. So bullying can happen with respect to that. Bullying can also happen with respect to sexual orientation, whether you are a single, whether you are a straight, gay, a transgender, and so on. Or bullying can happen with respect to most unfortunate, with respect to disabilities. When children with autism, when children with some kind of stammer issues, they will also get bullied. So bullying can happen to anything, any kind of topics. Now, so we have bullying, and then we started with what is known as cyberbullying. If you look at cyberbullying, Government of India has taken a very, very clear stand on cyberbullying. They have clearly made their point of view. Very similarly, there are organizations across the world who are fighting this cyberbullying, and they have campaigns, they have NGOs. Most of these NGOs are contributed, supported by basically by the parents of those victims. That's so unfortunate, because the parents have formed the consortium and they are supporting this cause. So because their wards were actually were the victim of cyberbullying, so they want to make sure that none of the other children or others get impacted by cyberbullying. So they have started a very large movement across the world, and India has also have started a very good initiative on cyberbullying. So today, because internet has become one of the very important things of life, so what has happened is, previously bullying was happening physically. Now bullying is happening through the use of technology. And there are a number of experiences, life-threatening experiences of cyberbullying that has happened and internationally, and that has its impact to society. For example, case one. Jessica was a college girl who committed suicide after sexting, a nude photo of herself to a boyfriend. So this is a common trend between, because of WhatsApp and other things, they will exchange explicit images of themselves to their friends. But when they broke up, they sent a photo, that picture, whatever messages that they had shared was sent to everyone else. So Jessica, after learning this, she actually committed suicide. Case number 2. One of the 36-year-old woman has posted this. It says that I'm a Facebook user, and I've reported that there are many females who are putting all kinds of things about me on their wall, and Facebook actually is not doing anything. Okay, so now if you look at it, Facebook now has given you an option wherein which you can moderate. Right? Moderate in the sense you can say this is nudity, this is violence, this is this, and you can inform Facebook about this. But there was a time when this was not available, so people were actually putting nasty things about somebody in their what is known as their in the wall, because if in case if you are a Facebook user, that the wall is a place where you post things. Similarly, there was one of the report by a 12-year-old boy. He says that he was threatened by somebody that they would kill him. Okay, so these kind of threatening kind of a pitch, message was also put on a 12-year-old boy. So 12-year-old boy is a very small boy. So this kind of an image or this kind of a message can have a real impact on that 12-year-old boy, because it can impact him not only mentally but also otherwise. So what is this cyberbullying? Cyberbullying is an act of being aggressive, intentionally carried out by a group or an individual using electronic forms of contact repeatedly and over time against a victim who cannot easily defend himself or herself. Okay, any kind of cyberbullying is commendable. It's not actually welcome. It should be handled with utmost care and consequences, because but what makes cyberbullying more dangerous than the traditional bullying is that in the case of traditional bullying, we know who actually is bullying, but in the case of cyberbullying, all the bullies are hidden behind the scene. They are behind, they have their pseudo, they have the false image, false profile. So it will be very difficult to know who exactly or how many exactly are bullying a particular victim. So cyberbullying is one of the aggression carried out in electronic form against a person who cannot easily defend himself or herself. It has 3 important features: aggression online, imbalance of power. Yes, because the victim will be very, very nervous. Victim will be very, probably not that of using technology. On the other hand, the bully will be very much familiar with the technology, will be very powerful. He'll know how to use the gadgets. He'll know how to, use technology to his convenience. So therefore, an imbalance of power between the individual involved. And this can happen over time. So these are the 3 main features of what is called as cyberbullying. Cyberbullying can happen directly or indirectly. When I say directly, what does it mean? Directly is something like, when some actions is directly affecting you. Say, for example, somebody sending a virus directly, somebody excluding you from a group. When somebody wants to exclude you from a group because, they think that you are not part of that particular elite group, they exclude you. So their actions are explicitly noted or mentioned. So that is what we call as direct cyberbullying. On the other hand, you have something called indirect cyberbullying. So when you say indirect cyberbullying, it is without one's knowledge. It is something like social outcasting, very similar to social outcasting. Somebody removing me without my knowledge. So that is an example of cyberbullying. Somebody publishing something about me without my knowledge in elsewhere, in a different platform, or somebody trying to, gossip about me in a different platform. So those are what is known as the features of what is known as indirect cyberbullying. Now, according to a survey published, 43% of the kids have been bullied online, and 1 in 4 said that it has happened more than once. 70% of the students report seeing frequent bullying online, and 80% of the teens say use a cell phone regularly, say that it is the most common thing or it is the most common medium for cyberbullying. So cyber cell phones has become the common medium for cyberbullying. 81% of the young people think bullying online is easier to get away with than bullying in person. They think so, but now today, technology has helped us to understand and to pinpoint who actually is a bully, right? Technology has enabled us to do it. And also, there are a lot of reforms that has introduced by the governments so as to understand, they have understood this particular enhance and have attributed in reducing this kind of an issue. 90% of the teens who have seen social media bullying say that they have ignored it, and 80% have seen others tell cyberbullies to stop, and only 1 in 10 victims will inform a parent or any trusted adult about this kind of an abuse. Girls are as likely as the boys to be the victims as well as to be the bullies. And similarly, 58% of the kids say that someone has said hurtful things to them online, and more than 4 out of 10 say this has happened more than once. Bullying victims are 2 to 9 times more likely to consider committing suicide. And also, the stat says 90% of the teens agree that they have ignored cyberbullying, while some have taken steps to stop bullying. India ranks at number 3 in the list of online bullying cases. And similarly, 70% of the cyberbullying activities happen over Facebook. This is also one of the statistics that was reported. And the other quite popular mediums are Facebook, as mentioned, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagrams. These are the top networks that are the sources for cyberbullying. So again, what are the different types of cyberbullying? So just going through very quickly, the different types of cyberbullying is flooding. One is flooding. What is flooding? Flooding is basically somebody sending unwanted messages to everybody. That is flooding. What is impersonation? Impersonation is also a kind of bullying. Using others' user's name to bully a victim. So that is impersonation. What is then there is something called flaming. Flaming involves more than 2 users attacking each other at a personal level. So that is flaming. So sending abusive materials, abuses. So that is what we call as flames. Then there is another which is quite popular in social media, which is called as trolling. Trolling is also a kind of bullying, actually. Trolling is basically, intentionally posting comments that disagree with the other post for the purpose of provoking a fight. So intentionally posting some messages that disagree with the actual message and causing a fight. Then you have something called harassment, repeatedly sending offensive messages to the victim over an extended period of time. That is harassment. And as we have mentioned, cyber stalking is also one of the forms of bullying. Then you have something called denigration. Denigration is something like writing a vulgar or untrue rumors. It's basically spreading of rumors about someone to another, posting them to public community. So what are the features of a cyber, we did mention about the feature of a bully victim. Now, if in case we want to understand what is a feature of a cyber bully victim. So the feature of a cyber bully victims would be 1, unexpectedly stops using their devices, because when somebody appears, he just stops using the device. Appears to be nervous or jumpy when using the device, because they tend to be very nervous, and appears to be uneasy when they are at school or outside, and appears to be very angry, depressed, frustrated when they are texting, chatting, or social media usage. That's where, because they are being bullied, and they avoid discussions about their activities online. So these are some of the features about a victim. Similarly, feature of a cyberbully quickly switches, the person who actually bullies quickly switches the screen or hides their devices, and he's always on the device at all hours of the night, then gets upset if they can't use the devices, avoids discussion about what they are doing online, and uses multiple online accounts, so that he uses different accounts to bully people. How do we stop cyberbullying? In order to stop cyberbullying, 1, do not respond or retaliate. 2, keep the evidence safe so that you can report it to the authorities. 3, reach out for help with parents or the law enforcement agencies. 4th, use technology either to block, to prevent people bullying you. 4th, protect your account safe so that you know whom you can make a friend and whom you can unfriend. And the last, keep your profile very safe. Don't share your profile with anybody. Be always mindful of what you post, because this is very important. We have almost seen that in the social media, this has become a common thing, that whenever we visit different places, we tend to put photographs. When we put photographs, it also gives indication to others watching my profile that probably I'm not in station, I'm currently out of station, and that can also give them different thoughts of committing crime. Thinks about who sees what you post online. So you should be very cautious what you post online. Do not open emails that you think are very suspicious from a suspicious user or from a suspicious sender. Then the last, stop downloading free softwares and use of illegal softwares, because this is considered to be one of the major contributor to not only to the cyberbullying, but also to what is known as cybercrime. So how do we prevent cybercrime? So to prevent cybercrime from happening, say, for example, you talk about stalking. So avoid disclosing any information about oneself, okay? And avoid sending any kind of photographs online, especially to strangers and chat friends. Use latest updated antivirus and softwares to guard against virus attacks. And always keep up backup volume so that one may not suffer data loss in case of virus contaminations. Always make it a habit to back up the data that you have. Okay, so that is also one of the interesting method to prevent the loss of data, because if the attack has happened on the data, at least you would have some backed up data, and that data can be used or for the subsequent functioning. Never send your credit card number to any site that is not secured to guard against frauds. Always keep a watch on the sites that your children are accessing to prevent any kind of harassment or any kind of activities in the children. It is always better to use some kind of security control to be exercised when you are using online. Website owners should watch the web traffic and check any irregularities on the site. Use of firewalls can be very beneficial. Web servers running public sites must be physically separated from the internal network of the institute or organizations. Also, it should have an operating system that is up to date with the latest service packs, up to date antivirus and spywares. Always try to make sure that pop-ups are blocked, and always mention use of strong passwords. Typically passwords that should not be simple passwords or passwords that are English meaningful words. It should not be English meaningful words. What I mean is, it should not be something like earth, or it should not be something like moon. This should not be password. So password should always be a mixture of letters and numbers. Say, for example, M123005667, something like that. So then, it will not be easy for anybody to attack it or crack it using a dictionary-based attack. Then secure wireless network. So network should be secured. And then you also have to use websites and mobile applications only when they are reputable. Reputable means because different agencies will give their certification. Only with those kind of websites or mobile applications you need to communicate with. And avoid clicking on unexpected and unfamiliar links. What are the challenges that we have? The challenges that we have is, one, hardware and software issues. Hardware and software, again, that needs to be periodically understood, because most of them become obsolete. So therefore, we need to understand, constantly upgrade hardware and software. The other challenge is something like awareness. So most of the people, they're not aware of, how exactly the cybercrime happens and what are the different forms of cybercrime that can happen. The third is the law. So conventionally, for any crime, we have all different laws. Very similarly, we need to have laws for cybercrime as well, because we don't have a finite boundary for cybercrime. The boundary is, there are n number of the crimes that have been reported every now and then. So therefore, we have to constantly evolve, or we need to have laws that will address those kind of threats or crimes that that arises. And most importantly, we don't have jurisdiction issues, because anybody sitting in India, they can commit a crime in US or elsewhere. So therefore, there is this kind of issue as well. And one of the interesting things that we have noticed is most of the people, especially the senior citizens, they as well as the youngsters, especially, they feel that they don't report their offenses. They don't report the cybercrime. For example, if somebody has lost something like 50,000 or 1 lakh rupees because of phishing kind of an attack, they fail to report because they will feel that what the society would think about them. So they will actually fail, or they have that some kind of hesitation to report those kind of offenses. And most importantly, training. So in order to provide training, in order to prevent this cybercrime happening, not only in our homes, but also in our workplace, we need to have some kind of effective training to be imparted, so that everybody knows what can lead or what can cause cybercrime. So that means a person in the housekeeping should also be informed that he or she cannot plug a pen drive into any machines, and what consequence that can have, what consequences that can have, right? So these are some of the things that can be oriented by an effective training. So just to conclude, Internet has enabled interconnection of people and resources that are beneficial to society in many ways. At the same time, it has opened us an virtual world for people to carry out their activities and at the same time be anonymous. So every day there has been a different forms of issues faced by the cyber world. And this has resulted in loss of life and property. So therefore, there is a need to continuously work to address the issues related to the cybercrime and cyber threats. So this is through research and development, through effective government policies, collaboration with industries and governments, effective training, and most importantly, education through societal outreach programs. Okay, so with this, I just have concluded my a talk on cybercrime, and I'm extremely happy to be part of this program, and I'm extremely thankful to the management and the organizers for giving me an opportunity to be part of this particular program. Thank you very much. And if there is any questions, I'll be happy to answer the questions. Pushkin?
Hello.
Sir.
Hello. Sir.
Sir. Namaste, sir.
Namaste, sir. Namaste. Sir, thank you very much, sir. You have covered a topic in detail and you have enlightened our knowledge how cyber crimes have happened and what are the classifications and who are the people behind it, and all these things you have narrated well, and my viewers also have gone through, and I hope that they are going to, in the chat box they have raised some issues also. So
Yes, sir.
I hope that because of your detailed demonstration, they could able to understand and they could able to clarify their doubts, it seems. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Close it. Close, madam.